Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the workshop. It's fantastic to have you here, and it is fantastic to have Brian from Real Engineering here in the workshop. A little 5-second intro to what you do on YouTube.
So I make documentary engineering videos, so I document the history and science behind all the amazing engineering that makes our lives better, basically.
Those videos are incredible. Make sure you check them out. They look very much like the t-shirt that he's wearing, which is fantastic. Incredible videos. Make sure you check it out. But the first thing that I did today is I quickly roughed out some of the grinds that on the Bowie knife that you forged yesterday. Then, well, Brian commented on one of my recent videos where I shot my shotgun. He said, can we go shooting when I visit? And so...
Never shot a shotgun before.
We went shooting and Jamie came along too.
I got one.
He did? He got one as well?
I got one.
And then I lit the forge and I took the remnants from the same bar of steel that we used yesterday and I drew that out onto the power hammer into a longer, thinner bit, and then I just let it cool down straight after the forging. So the plan now is as follows. Brian is gonna do some more grinding on his Bowie knife, and then as we get close to the heat treatment process, we're gonna be talking in a lot more depth about heat treating, showing like the practical side of it, because eventually he's going to be making a video about heat treating, showing the smart stuff about it, which is his kind of speciality. So guys, thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoy. All right, you ready? Let me give you a little tutorial, Rooney. Thank you, sir. So here's where we are with the knife right now. I've roughed in the flats. I've roughed in the taper for our tang, which is wonderful. It's going to help give us a nice bevel. And we've got a little bit of the profile in there. What you see, however, is we're still rather thick on the edge. This is a 36 grit. We're going to do a smidge more here, bringing this bevel back about another 1/4 inch. You can now come in here. You can do your first little bit of a grind. Beautiful. That pass there, best pass of the day. Look how clean that looks. That is a bloody beautiful bevel. This is looking pretty good. It's a little wavy, nothing that can't be fixed. However, you see our edge is starting to get thin. This is now a good time for us to stop and begin to get ready for heat treat. Part of that is we've got to start making some holes. For us to get holes where we want them, we have to finish the profile of the handle. So right now we've been working with the flat platen that has a carbide face on it, so the back of the belt doesn't wear it. What we're now going to do is we're going to switch to a small wheel attachment. I'm going to turn down the speed because naturally we're going to be running those bearings at a much higher RPM than they might like to if we run it at the standard belt speed. And with that low speed, we can then come in here and get a little radius in here. We don't want to do too much, just a little bit. Not even as far as the right-hand edge of the Sharpie line. You can go for it. So as you can see, Brian has done an incredible job grinding his knife. I then hopped in there and I gave the tang area a little bit of a flatten, and I brought it to 120 grit, just so we got that extra nice and clean, because the next step is we need to drill the holes to accept the pins that we use to help secure the handle scales. More on that in a little bit. You need to drill those holes. First, you've got to mark where the holes are going to go. I'd recommend that you scribe 7mm in from the edge with a pair of worn out calipers, and then work out a nice place for it, and then you can hop in the mill. Very nice. So we'll give her a little mount here in the old Vice-A-Rooney.
Hey, we're gonna give her a mount in the old Vice-A-Rooney.
There we go. And now I'm manipulating your Y&X, then loosening this, dropping down the quill. This is not going to be showing true center until it's spinning, so we come up here to high speed, drop that down to about there. And now what you'll do is you'll just lightly peck at it, and you see it runs all over the place, right? I need to go forward with the X, check it's not going side to side. Perfect. We're now on center roughly. It's not amazingly accurate, it's fine for this. I can put a little dollop on there. Again, loosen this and gently bring this down through the material. You'll feel a slight difference when you hit the mild steel below it. Come up, turn this off there. There we go. we've got a hole, you can manipulate and do all the other holes like that. Meanwhile, I'm going to cut up some bits of steel for our little test samples. The holes in Brian's Bowie knife have been drilled and he's countersunk both sides. While he did that, I went to the bandsaw and then the belt grinder. I took the piece of steel that I forged out this morning. I've cut it in 4. I've numbered them 1 through 4. And right now, these bits of steel are in a very similar state. See, this is why I do the pragmatic stuff and you're gonna do the smart stuff. These bits of steel are in a similar state to this when it comes to like the hardness, softness, yada, yada, yada.
Crystalline structure.
That stuff,
There you go.
in terms of crystalline structure, pretty similar to what this is right now. I've mentioned before hardening a knife, I'll normalize it. The reason for it, supposedly, it brings the grain size down. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take piece number 1. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lock this in the vise, I'm gonna bend it. It's gonna bend, it's not gonna break. We want it to break so that we can look at the grain. We're then gonna slit it and then break it by concentrating the stress.
Stress concentration.
Stress concentration. There we go. Into the vise we go. 8-pound sledge. Don't do this at home at all. You could end up with bits of steel in your leg or in your eye or in your face. Bad idea. It bends. Nice. Let's zip it with an angle grinder. So there we go, it broke nice and easily, and you can have a look at what the material looks like there with the break. This is piece number 1, onto piece number 2. And while we're normalizing it, we might as well start normalizing cycles on the blade. Blade goes into the forge, piece goes into the forge. We're going to heat it to just above non-magnetic, let it cool down in air. The blade is also non-magnetic, the magnet doesn't stick. We're going to let it cool down in air. Now, of course, I usually do a couple normalizing cycles. So that's normalizing cycle number 2 and normalizing cycle number 3. So back to our wonderfully scientific experiment, 8-pound sledge. Let's nick it with an angle grinder. Well, that's interesting. So, to the naked eye, it really doesn't look like there's too much difference there between number 1 and number 2 after 3 normalizing cycles. You'll also notice that they both cut very easily with a file, and there's no major difference in the softness. Now, what if we want to make some steel hard? Well, we're going to heat it up to its critical temperature. This is 1055, 0.55% plain carbon steel. We're going to aim for like 820 degrees Celsius. It loses its magnetism around 800 degrees Celsius, so when this doesn't touch, we should be okay. Magnet doesn't stick, into the oil I go. See that gray coating there? That's often a really good sign that we have indeed hardened it. So here's a hardened piece. Have a listen to this. Very high pitch. If we try and file it, very high pitched tone. Really doesn't bite all that much. Again, this is 1055. Not the hardest steel in the world. Certainly doesn't cut as if it's been normalized. Do not try this at home. This is super duper dangerous. Like super, super duper dangerous. That's why it's dangerous. I put a reflector up here. You know, I thought, let's just like stop it flying too far. There's one piece. I have no idea where the other piece has gone. I wonder if it shot straight down, maybe? That's the piece that went through there. Oh, you found it? So that shot straight down in the vise. Oh my goodness, that's crazy. It looks completely different to the normalized material in terms of how the break appears, and the brittleness is shocking. Now with a notch. Surprisingly, that is a lot stronger than I would expect hardened 1055 to be. I would have thought it would have been a lot more brittle, but when the appropriate amount of force is put on, boy, does that thing fly. It's going to cross the workshop again. And there is the break. It's a much finer break than the normalized material in terms of the look of it itself. It also took a lot more force to break it. which was very interesting. Now, of course, we're going to heat up the blade for the quench, and we're putting the blade in the tube to get a more equal heat. That way we're not relying on conduction from the gases of the burners, rather more conduction and radiation from the tube itself. So what you're going to do is you're going to come out of the forge, you're going to come over the quench tank, you're going to put it in, and you're going to gently shake it about halfway up the tang. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to quench the knife. Here you go. Keep going, there we go. Down, 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 down. All the way down. Push it all the way down. Almost set fire to you. Look at that martensite on there, look at that gray. So, this has now been hardened, and just like you saw when we smashed the hell out of test piece number 3, and it shot across the workshop, this is gonna be extremely brittle. You hear the high pitch of the file skating and not biting. This is too brittle for a knife. Just a second ago, I hardened workpiece number 4 after 3 normalizing cycles, just like workpiece number 3 and number 2. And then I put it in the oven at 200 degrees. Piece number 4 goes in the oven at 200 degrees. And we left it there for about an hour. Let's have a look at how that now withstands some abuse with a sledgehammer. Here is piece number 4 after an hour in the tempering oven. We're now gonna lock it in the vise. I'm gonna suit up and we're gonna see what the sledge will do to it. Things can break and destroy and kill people. Ah! That, ladies and gentlemen, is why we harden and temper metal. 12-pound sledge. Point proven. Do you reckon you're going to be able to explain that?
Yeah, I think so. Prove their point.
That kind of strength is pretty handy. The ability to take that kind of pounding, not fracture, but in fact only bend after all of that. That's why we need to temper this Bowie knife also. So naturally, we're also gonna temper the blade. While that's tempering, we're gonna cut a notch in here and we're gonna see what happens with the notch when we do the stress. Watch me do that. Stress concentration, there we go, science. Here we go for the stress concentration test. Don't try this at home. That's incredible. That did just fly off also. But have a look at the difference in the break there. Interestingly enough, as this broke, it pulled a lot of material from down here, which is a ways away below where the actual notch was cut. I don't know what that says. I'm gonna tell you what, this is quite beautiful to look at this. So we got the knife out of the tempering oven. It was just a smidge warm, so I had to water it down, cool it down. And it is starting to get pretty late here on Sunday evening. And Brian he's got to leave tomorrow morning, and we need to hustle. I have some light speed, fast grinding to do. I'm gonna hustle, and I'm gonna see you when I'm ready to start drilling holes in our handle material, and we're gonna tell you why that's gonna be pretty special. I have spent a long time grinding on this, took it from that hardened finish, which has the scale on it, 36, 60, 120, 243, 20, 400 grit trizact equivalent, 800 grit trizact equivalent. Here we are. I've roughed out a little pocket here in the handle. So that the glue has a little more to stick into, because that's 36 grit, the rest isn't. Speaking of glue, speaking of handles, we're gonna use carbon fiber, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, from the looks of it, this is carbon fiber weave with epoxy resin. As some of you may know from my channel, I have fairly good understanding of these materials. I have a thesis in carbon fiber and epoxy matrices, analyzing them on the atomic level, or the fiber level, more to the point, macro.
So it is pretty cool that for his Bowie knife, we're gonna put carbon fiber scales on it. I've never worked with carbon fiber. I'm gonna, hustle as I am to try and get these things on here.
It's gonna be a fun time for whatever cutter you're using.
Yay!
Essentially diamond carbon, like.
Oh, great. So my drill bits will just go through it like butter, right?
it has been a total blast having you here in the workshop. Guys, do not click onto another video unless it is one of Real Engineering's videos. They are absolutely fantastic, and be looking out, a video on heat treatment.
Might take a month or two.
That's fine. Make sure you subscribe and make sure you spot it. Look for the blue thumbnails that are Real Engineering. Learn some incredible things about engineering. Ladies and gents, thank you so much for watching.
Time to go to bed.
What are you talking about? It's nice and early. I've got another 5 hours work in me.
12:30, past midnight.
Is it not normal to still be
This
ready?
man works hard. I want to go to bed.
Oh well. Well, anyway, subscribe to his channel. If you're new here, subscribe here. Ladies and gents, thanks for watching. It's a pleasure as always. Real Engineering, everybody.